Drop the beat. Teen speak.
Can I have some ketchup with that? Okay, thank you. You can just come back later. Hey, welcome back to a brand new episode of Teen Speak. I am Dawson Bailey. This is my buddy, Coach Taylor.
Hello.
Hi, or Zach Taylor, Mr. Zach Taylor. I call him Coach. But how was your day so far, Mr. Coach, sir?
It's going well. I love the SpongeBob reference, by the way.
Thank you.
Told
Thank you. I love it. Anyway, so today we're going to be talking about, if y'all have y'all's Bibles with you, we're going to be talking about a subject here in the book of Ephesians 5. Ephesians 5, yes.
Ephesians chapter number 5, verse number 1 and 2. Now, we were talking, Dawson and I were talking, and like I said, we wanted to talk to you guys about things that we believe could be a help to you. I believe all of the Bible can be a help to you, but how can we apply it to you today? Sorry about that, guys. I was being smiled at and it distracted me. Just so you know, I have a squirrel brain. Squirrel! And when I see something, it kind of distracts me, and I get very, very confused. So I apologize for this. Now, let's get back to it. Ephesians chapter number 5, verse number 1. It says here, "Be ye therefore followers of God as dear children, and walk in love as Christ also hath loved us, and hath given himself for us, an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet-smelling savor." I think this is an interesting topic to talk about. It's definitely one that is it's opposite of what our culture is wanting to teach. I'm going to be very honest with you guys. Even in a Christian school, sometimes it can be hard to be a follower of God. It's very easy sometimes, even around Christian peers, if we want to put that word in, it's easy to not live like we're supposed to because we're afraid of what people are going to think. Listen, I've been teaching now in a Christian school for 4 or 5 years. I've been going to Christian schools, Christian colleges, since my 10th grade year of high school, which would probably be, I'm assuming, like 12 years. So I've been around it a lot, and I've realized something, that it is, I would even say it's easiest to backslide when you're at a Christian school. It's easiest to backslide because you're constantly around the Bible. You're constantly around good, in air quotes, good. You're around Bible teaching, Bible preaching. But sometimes you can stray away. You can be in church 3 times a week, but really your heart is so far away from God, and you're living like the world. Now, we had already done our testimonies. We talked about being religious in Dawson's, and in mine, I talked about how I was living and going to church, but still not living for God. In fact, I was living very wickedly. So I want to talk to you guys about the subject of being a follower of God, and then it says there, as dear children. This is a topic that's important to us. I believe it's important to be a follower of God. Now, Dawson, you're a little younger than I am, so let me ask you, what do you think is the hardest thing for you as a young person when it comes to being a follower of God? What's the hardest thing for you to do?
Well, just kind of the personality that I am, I've always wanted to fit in with the crowd. And a really hard thing, especially at days like this where there's a bunch of social media and, television and all this technology, it could be very influential. And, with my kind of personality, trying to fit in with the crowd, sometimes that crowd cannot be, the most good crowd that there is. And so, to be followers of God as dear children. I'm so sorry, guys. Dear children. It's kind of hard to, you have to be outside of that. Well, it's not sometimes, I mean, there are some times where, Jesus dined with sinners and all that. So, Jesus, that's the best way to soul win and stuff like that. But, as worldly, darkness, stuff like that, you need to stay away from that kind of crowd when you're trying to be a follower of God as dear children.
Yeah, and the sad thing to me, I think, is when you talk about Christian schools and when you talk about churches and youth groups, it's not the world getting more churchy. We're not getting people saved, but what it is the people that are in the church are becoming more worldly. And it's sad because if we want to be followers of God, we'll talk about it in later episodes. He continues on with things that we should not be or not partake in. But if we want to be followers of God, he follows it up with that statement, as dear children. It's important for us to be as children of God. And, when I heard this and I thought about it for a while, almost thought about the picture of ducklings. You have the mother duck that walks, and you have the little ducklings that follow behind. And when you're following God, you're like a duckling, and you're following God in stride. You're following him step for step. The hardest part, I think, is it's easy for us. Me personally, I think the hardest part is we get turned around and we get focused on the world a little too much. Like you said, whether it's peer pressure, worrying about what people are thinking about us, whether it's wanting to have fun, and I put that in air quotes, whatever the case may be, it's easy for us to get distracted by the world, as I mentioned earlier in this episode. I'm the type of person, just speaking from like a living standpoint, I'm a type of person, if I see something going on and I'm supposed to be focused on something, it's easy for me to get distracted. But the same thing's true in our Christian lives. Sometimes it's easy for us to be following God and then just get distracted. Right. You're following God, you're doing the right thing. Well, then you start playing video games. Like I've said before, I have nothing against video games. I love video games. Yeah, me too. But then we get distracted and we forget to do our Bible reading, or we forget to pray. We go and we hang out with friends, which is okay, but then we forget to go to church, which is dangerous. And it says here, be followers of God. And then he follows that up with another admonition here. He says, and walk in love. We need to walk in love. Some of the meanest people I've seen are young people, Christian young people. And that may rub you the wrong way, and if it does, I'm sorry. But the truth is there are some vicious people. And I'm not just saying just young people. I know adults that are very mean. But sometimes Christians and Christian young people can be some of the most critical and hurtful people there is. And Paul here, he says we need to walk in love. Right? Walk in the love of Christ. He says here, as Christ also has loved us. Right? What's your motivation for walking in love? Well, you need to walk in love because Christ loved you. Right? Wow. You need to walk in love because Christ has loved you. How do you think, Dawson, that we can show this love or walk in love, as Paul says here?
Well, I mean, start out with, friendly things. Like I said, Jesus, he dined with sinners, back to that. That's what, I'm not saying, go to a bar, just hang out with people. But, be a good Christian example where you are. For instance, at my workplace, the best thing for me is to be more like Jesus and to be that good Christian example, And eventually, there are some, people that will be interested in stuff like that, and you'll start making a friendship. You'll start being friendly, and for me, the best advice is probably just be more like Jesus, because Jesus knew how to do that.
Yeah, sure. And walk in the love of God. That's what it says here. Make sure that your testimony isn't just religious. Make sure that your testimony is a relationship. You're walking in that love for God. And it says here, now what's the motivation for walking in love? Because Christ has loved us, and he's already given himself an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet-smelling favor. And what Paul's saying here is, we in the face of God, our sin and our flesh is vile. And God could never allow something so putrid and vile as our flesh into his presence. Right. So Christ became the sacrifice, and he became that sweet-smelling savor and that sacrifice to God. And so when God now looks at us, he sees Christ, which is awesome. That's amazing.
That is awesome.
It's amazing to know when God looks at us, he sees Christ. But then the question comes in, when others look at us, who do they see?
Right. That's pretty powerful. That is.
Because if you're walking in love, it should be pretty simple, right? If you're walking in the love of Christ and you're living like God has commanded you to live, and it's because of a relationship, as you've mentioned before, and not out of a religious sense, then it should be easy to be a good witness for Christ. It should be easy to be that person. This is just the introduction to his thoughts here in Ephesians chapter number 5. We're going to work our way down through a good portion of this, but I think that this is a good place that we'll end on this episode, and we'll pick up in verse 3 in the next episode. So Dawson, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody where they can find us at? Ask them your question if you have one.
Yes.
Do your thing.
All right, questions for commenters, people. Questions for commenters. This is a very, very serious question, okay? And y'all have to comment. I need to hear this. I want to hear the majority, okay? Who is better, Captain America or Iron Man? Okay?
Iron Man.
Yeah, and all the people behind the camera's like, oh, goodness. Okay, yeah, we want to hear you Democrats. Anyway, so, yep, like, subscribe, please. There's also Cherishing Scripture Podcast. What time is church Sundays?
Church is at 10 a.m. for Sunday school and 11 a.m. Dawson not knowing when church is. This is the pastor's son, by the way. And 11 a.m. for
I should know this.
Sunday service.
I don't drive to church yet, so I don't know.
I'll say it as Pastor Baby says it, 10, 11, 6, and 7.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, that's
10, 11, 6, and 7.
I remember 10, 11. I got to remember that. Okay.
So 10 o'clock on Sundays is our Sunday school, 11 o'clock is our worship service, 6 o'clock is our evening service, and 7 o'clock is our prayer service on Wednesday.
Yeah. And another thing, like Coach also teaches a Sunday school class at 10. So please, for teenagers, not for you older people, sorry. But for you teenagers, please come. We'd love you.
Yeah, we'd love to have you guys there. So thank you guys for listening to another episode of Teen Speak, and we will catch you guys in the next one.
All right, bye.